Havana Syndrome has so far been shrouded in a controversial secret as a medical condition and reluctantly made available in the scientific discourses. In spite of the reluctancies, global availability of technologies to conduct the violations reported by the US diplomats was never a hidden agenda for conspiracies. United States and various NGO accounts illustrate the deployments of these high-tech tools in warfare and beyond, targeting both diplomats and civilians. Though the word syndrome has been treated as an interdisciplinary reflection in the humanities and cultural sciences, the unknown of the real syndrome questions the human constructions of fiasco and the works of wars, conflicts, and crises of common structures of sense. A founding myth of the global episteme, of globalization, of living in the illusion of beliefs, should now be connected to the human condition for the threat of the unknown and a treaty for it. Let's say in the 1960s United States, more of a multitude of news channels and television networks could say, spread the news of the entry of Soviet bats into Cuba. How would that have been perceived? For sure, there were no bats entering Cuba through fantasized airs and clouds for real. What is needed is scientifically available common sense to name these syndromes. It is never ethically objective to lie, hide, and deny scientific facts for mystified and religious alternatives. For there to be a real debate, factuality like no otherwise, there should not be fiction. Havana Syndrome, in this sense, may increase the degree of ideological prescriptions in the conclusions of even the official accounts around the world. The uses of the technologies that lead to the Havana or Kiev or Syria syndromes have obviously expanded into the fields of censor, surveillance, violation of the right to free expression, and torture. The symptoms expressed by the diplomats and the civilians point to the exploitation of the conscious and unconscious brain and twisting the human mind into nightmares of transmitting externally crafted fictions. These are absolutely a violation of human rights and the sanctity of the human mind. Numerous instances of suspected systems like voice and visual information simulation illustrate that it is not a fair practice, infringing the universal human rights. Well, the inadequate legal descriptions of the uses of high-tech and the challenge of the legal borders are the question here. States, corporate actors, and organized networks may well be participating in what leads to these syndromes for a while now, deciding to censor, surveil, and violate the rights for free expression for any of the purposes on their behalf, with stages that aim at continued detention of what I self-reflexively call the victim for their interests, if not for the sake of scientific progress. The key to suppressing knowledge of this victimization via fraud in the sciences, group stalking, gang stalking, mobbing, gaslighting, and violence that cause this Orwellian syndrome of surveillance would incorporate combinations of both propaganda and disinformation towards discrimination for, in my experience, being openly atheist, humorist, and leftist, and so on and so forth, whoever doesn't fit into the good in the minds of the perpetrators of these violations. Well, like all countries, Turkish and American governments have institutions of surveillance, censor, and various violations of the right to live and to free expression. I found myself in the midst of the Orwellian Syndrome in a fraud sponsored by USA, Turkish, Russia, China authorities and their volunteered counterparts, an open-air detention ending up with more symptoms than what is publicly expressed in the syndromic discourses. Lying, hiding, denying the facts of censor, surveillance, and various violations, and reframing these as if I am more liable or my digital or non-digital data is full of jinns or leprechauns that haunt various spirits through fair doses of ideologies and religions in the medical fraud and the sciences is totally an example of the unnameable Orwellian syndrome of politics and religion. Fraud concerns accepting unscientific, unquestionable, and unlawful approaches, communication, and a post-structural detention in these conditions and situations. Due to both cost and lack of availability of informed consent in these uses, developing countries like Cuba and moderately developed countries like Austria are more vulnerable to see the simulated versions of the syndrome, leading to dangerous trajectories. The victim's information may be exposed to censor, surveillance, and various modes of human rights violation. The very first article of the European Convention on the Human Rights from 1950. Firms and governments must have distinct, autonomous, and democratic institutions that are responsible for ordering the trust and credibility of the unlawful uses of these tools and prevent the right to live and to free expression from being violated. The questionably informative technologies would reiterate the violation circles for such materializations as tracking, profiling, and surveillance, functioning to materialize the victim's life politically, religiously, or ideologically.